What up, party people? What up, Facebook? Welcome to the Tuesday Thoughts with me, Mike, your mentor. Sorry I'm a little bit late tonight. I was working on some business stuff, and when I get going, I get a one-track mind, and I got to finish it before I even think about anything else. So time kind of got away from me. My apologies if you're watching the replay. What's up? Appreciate you tuning in. So we got some good stuff tonight as we continue in this series of mentoring. And last week we talked about what was it? What was the question specifically? We talked about, do you have a mentor, and tips for finding a mentor. And this week we're talking about the flip side of that, which is, are you mentor material? So if you're new to this channel, on the whole Mike the Mentor concept, it's pretty simple. So I grew up in a dysfunctional home, didn't really have a father around. He was in and out of prison. Some crazy stuff happened in my life. My brother committed suicide. My dad died of cancer. Just all these hard life events. And now that I'm older and I look back with 20/20 hindsight, I realized a couple things in my life. One, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the grace of God. And two, if I didn't have mentors in my life. And a lot of people talk about mentors, and my mentors came from books that I was reading. When I would read a story about someone who had been through a very tough situation in their life and that they chose to do something about it and to, I guess, not be a victim and to change their life despite their circumstances, that was extremely motivating for me and gave me a lot of hope. And then I had mentors in my life physically, men who came alongside me and held me to a higher standing, right? They spoke vision into my life. They planted little seeds that sometimes sprouted immediately and sometimes sprouted years later. And those could have been coaches. Those could have been father figures. Those could have been fathers of other friends that I have. Nobody is a self-made man or a self-made person. We're all the sum of what people have planted in us along the way and what we've allowed to take root inside of us. So the whole Mike the Mentor is an effort to give back to other men and teach these things that I've learned along the way, primarily about manhood, right? As I struggled to learn what it meant to be a man as I grew up, not having a fatherly role for what exactly that looked like, but I was able to learn vicariously through the men that I watched. So we're going to jump right into tonight. And how do you know, if you're mentor material? Well, I would pose to you that everybody is mentor material, because I don't care what age you are. If you're in your 20s, we'll even back it up, right? If you're in your teens, maybe you're in high school, there's some kid in junior high who would love to know what your experience has been as you've navigated through high school. What are some of the things that they need to be on the lookout for? Peer pressure, dating, picking the right friends, all these things that you've been able to walk through that you can now share with them and help them, right? Not have to struggle and find that way themselves. If you're in college, and there's somebody, in high school that you can come alongside of and be like, hey man, are you thinking about these things as you prepare for college, as you get ready to go to this next chapter in your life? If you're in your 30s, you can be a mentor to a young man who's in their 20s and is experiencing that decade of life. Maybe they're engaged and they're soon to be married. What are some things you can share, some tangible life lessons that you can use to shed the light on with this person that you're mentoring of a younger age? I think of one of the mentors I had in my life, a gentleman by the name of Robin Cook, and he was my coach actually when I went and played on this basketball missions trip for 3 weeks in the Philippines. I think it was 30 games in 3 weeks. It was a lot of games. But when we got back, we actually met up and had some dinner, and and he was talking to me. I was engaged at that time, and he was talking to me about some good things that every man needs to think about when they're married. That might seem like common sense, but if you don't know, you don't know. And not having a dad or seeing what a good marriage looked like firsthand, I didn't know these things. And that was, you need to have a frequent date night with your wife, he told me. You need to try to get away quarterly for an overnight or somewhere so you can, just get away, you and your wife, and enjoy each other, right? Enjoy each other's company with no distractions. And then once a year, if it's possible, you need to be able to go away for a weekend or an extended period of time with your wife, because as life goes on, and he told me as marriage goes on, there's all these distractions and all these other things that are going to come into your life and fight for time, right? Fight for energy. And your marriage should be one of the most important things you have in your life, and that's how you sow those seeds into your marriage and you keep it together. And I'll never forget, that talk that he gave me. So it doesn't matter how old you are. I at the men's group in church, in our church, there's kind of a division, right? There's a younger group of guys, maybe like their 30s, maybe mid 40s, and then there's this big gap, and then there's guys in their their late 50s, maybe 60s, 70s, and some of these older guys, I think, they don't know what to do with us younger guys, because maybe they feel like they don't have anything to offer the younger generation, and that's just a lie. If you have life experience, right? If you're older than somebody by 5-10 years, you have a ton of experience and a ton of stuff to share with them. And I can tell you, and I could promise you, that a young man would love for you to take interest in them and in their life, and to just sow into their life. A lot of people ask me, well, what does mentorship include? Like, what does that look like? What do I got to do with this person? And that's a great question. And I'd say the simplest answer is just spend time with them. Right? Maybe it looks like you meet up and you go out to lunch once a week or once a month, and you just talk about life. You talk about where they're at and the challenges they're facing, and you just get to know one another, and you work from there. Maybe after some time, you guys decide on a book, and you go and you're going to read that together. I'm just looking on my bookshelf a minute. I think I gave it away. I used to have this great book on mentoring that me and a couple of guys I mentored went through, but I gave my last copy away. And that book was, it was very structured. So if you need structure, maybe a book is good for you. Where you read a chapter each week, and then you come back the next week and you talk about what you thought and what you learned. I mean, right at the heart of it, it's all about relationship, and it's all about being able to take that wisdom that you have, that you've garnered from life, right? That you've gleaned from life, and to share that with someone younger who hasn't reached that same point in their life, and encourage them, right? Speak truth into their life, and then point out any blind spots that they might not see. That lie ahead, that they're not thinking about. I think of a young kid I mentored back when I was in college, and he was just kind of coming into the later teenage years, and I remember having a very direct talk with him because he called me all excited about this credit card that he had signed up with, and he was pretty much under the illusion that it was free money. And we know that that's not true, and he had never had any experience with credit cards. No one in his family had prepared him for that. No one in his family had prepared him and talked to him, about a budget or anything. He had these huge, lofty goals of, what kind of car he wanted to drive, where he wanted to live, and then, I remember he came over and we were talking about this, and my grandpa overheard us. And my grandpa sat him down and put him through this exercise and asked him to think about, okay, how much money do you make in a week? All right, so what does that look like in a month? All right, now here's the money you have to live off of. Okay, how much are your groceries going to be? How much is your electric and your gas and your heat and your water? How much is all that going to be? And after he went through that exercise, it was extremely eye-opening for him to realize that maybe the life that he wanted to live was beyond what he could afford at that time. But that was huge for him, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, and if no one ever, walks you through that and shows you what it looks like, it almost becomes like the blind leading the blind. You're just wandering through life with your eyes closed, stumbling in the dark, hoping that you get lucky, and somehow after a bunch of mistakes, you're not buried too deep and you're able to get out of that. So, you know, everybody has the qualities to be a mentor, but it reminds me of a verse, right? Many are called, but few are chosen. There's so many people I know that discount themselves and discourage themselves from being a mentor in somebody else's life. Two other things that come to my mind real quick. You don't have to be a mentor by yourself. Maybe you're married and you want to come alongside a younger couple that just got married and talk to them, and do life with them and get to know them and talk about some of the struggles and some of the work that it takes to stay married and have a good marriage. If you're an older woman, you come alongside a younger woman, a newly married woman, and just talk to her about what that looks like and some of the challenges that young moms face, or that women face from a woman's perspective in being married. So my point is right, we've all got all this treasure inside of us that we discount. Don't discount yourself. If you've been through life, you have something valuable that someone younger would love to know about and hear. But what it starts with is you taking an interest in someone younger, right? Because they're not always going to speak up and say, "Hey, will you be my mentor?" Right? So I would suggest that you pray and you ask God to show you somebody that you could mentor. Whether you have your own kids or not. Obviously, if you have your kids, that should be your first focus. But if God reveals somebody to you, take that leap of faith and go talk to them about it. It may be just the coincidence that person is looking for. I know it's happened to me more than once. So I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. That's the Tuesday Thought with Mike, your mentor. Hope your week is going good, and we'll see you tomorrow on the page for Wednesday Wisdom. If you need anything, you know how to find me. Hit your boy up. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.